All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're back from recess, and now we will continue our meeting. What do we have up first? Okay. So we're looking to bring in Mr. Jackson Latimer. We might as well tell them to bring all of them up, sit outside or something, so.
We have a conference room right here.
Okay, all right, that's good. All right, very good.
Oh, we have questions? I'm just kidding.
Well, if you have some, if not.
Where would y'all like me? Right here?
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Latimer. How are you? I know we've been in meetings all day, right? And you've had the opportunity to speak to each one of us. And right now, we're just going to open it up and let you make any statements or comments you'd like to talk about. And then we'll more than likely have some further questions.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure meeting all of you. It's been a pleasure getting to know your town here, and it's a great city. Seems like a great place to work and live and raise a family, and I'm excited at the opportunity to speak with you, and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
All right, very good. Does anyone, council, want to start with any questions that you may have? If not, you can, no questions? We'll start down with Mr. Dodd. Mr. Dodd, do you have any further questions?
Actually, I'm fine.
Okay.
Let me turn this on. I'm fine with the
All right.
one session, yeah.
Vice Mayor?
Well, I mean, you're here, so let's talk.
Sounds good.
Talk us about your work ethic and how you feel it would apply here to Sebastian.
I'm sorry, talk about my work ethic?
Your work ethic and how it would apply to Sebastian.
Local government can be a place that stifles people going above and beyond what their job description is. I look at it as an opportunity to impress, and I thrive on being diligent and going above and beyond, and that is something that I've proven in my career so far. I've ascended the ladder at my office, and it's something I'm going to carry forward now. It's I've applied here because I'm looking for a new challenge and looking for that next phase, and so I'm excited to bring that energy to the city here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. We'll keep going down. Ms. Dixon, you have any further questions? If not, we don't have to, so.
In our one-on-one meeting, you mentioned that you feel you have a skill set of both being good with the law and managing. So with that, what's your personal philosophy of management?
My philosophy, and I think this has been refined through experience, is to trust but verify. I always try to trust people that I oversee to do their job, especially when when I'm managing lawyers, you know, it's an undertaking to get that credential, that professional degree, and so I always try to trust, and something I've spoken to some of you about is, you know, when I encounter problems, I always try to look for the least disruptive issue first. Give people the opportunity to correct their actions before I intervene, and I believe that's how people learn. Everybody needs time to learn. Everybody's on their own journey and growth track, and so I like giving the people the opportunity to fix their own mistakes or correct their own problems.
Yeah. All right, very good. You have any other questions, Ms. Dixon?
No.
Mr. McPartland?
As long as we have you, you know, you came all the way from Texas. So, all right. Can you describe an ethical issue that you had to deal with in your career and how you handled it?
We discussed some of this in our one-on-one meeting, and I think it's one of the most common things that lawyers of local government bodies encounter is conflicts of interest, where you have individual actors purporting to bind the council as a whole. As a lawyer, I have to remember that my client is actually this council acting, duly authorized, acting together. And so that's always something that needs to be on a lawyer's radar. And so it's really about remembering where my duties lie. And my duties would be to the council and not necessarily to that individual actor. But I can tell you also that I haven't encountered a conflict that I haven't been able to resolve.
Okay. And then, how well do you accept criticism?
Well, I believe in being a lifelong learner, and I don't know how else to grow except you try, and that comes with the risk of making mistakes, and so I always want to be open to constructive criticism, to that kind of feedback.
Okay. And then while you're here, while we're all here together, do you have any questions for us while we're all here together?
I don't think I have any questions. I think I've asked all of you questions individually, and I've appreciated the feedback I've gotten, and so I'll just say again that I appreciate the chance to come and meet all of you, and please let me know if there's anything else I can answer for you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. When you knew that you were applying for this position here in the city of Sebastian, what steps did you take to look and see what we're doing? Did you look at any documents on our website or research the city at all?
I did take certain steps. You know, I did cursory news searches and looked on the official website, and so, you know, I don't think I got on anyone's social media. I don't use social media, and so it's not really an outlet that I have available to me. But I did some reading online.
Yeah, did you have an opportunity to read over our charter at all?
I haven't read the charter yet.
All right, so we're looking for a city attorney who can see over the horizon, meaning can look into the future. We know nobody has a crystal ball or whatever, but to anticipate problems that might occur and the actions that will prevent those problems from occurring. Give us an example of how you have done that in one of your past positions. Forward-looking.
Foresight.
Yes.
And you'd like a specific example I'll tell you something that I've anticipated and been working with the Commissioners Court with that I currently work for is our tax abatement guidelines and the way we engage local businesses to come here. I think that there were some risks that weren't being addressed, and so I've taken commissioners and members of the court aside and kind of expressed these concerns, and we're getting ahead of those issues. And you know, a lot of those issues are getting corrected before they become politically explosive or anything like that, and so and certainly legally explosive. And so, but you know, that's largely a lawyer's role, is to anticipate risks, legal risks in particular, and so that's certainly that's certainly a skill set that I think I've demonstrated in my past roles and would bring to the table here.
All right, thank you, sir. I think we've asked all the questions. Is there anything else you want to talk to us about before we let you go outside?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Rodney Edwards is next.
Mr. Mayor, while we're waiting,
Yes, sir.
I just kind of like to thank Colin Basinger and his staff. They brought us 5 really good candidates for this position. I think we've had a good crop of individuals that we can choose from. So I just want to kind of thank our staff while we're waiting for this.
Agreed.
Oh, yeah, agreed. Thank you, Colin,
Yes.
for you and your staff. Make sure it's green.
Is it dead? We got some extras.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you all, and I must admit it's been a challenge. City attorneys are probably the hardest position to recruit for in the business, but I think we did end up well, so thank you again.
Yes, sir. Mr. Edwards, you can come to the mic. We're going to start off with, if you want to make a statement or a brief statement before we ask you any questions. We may have questions or we may not. So is there anything you'd like to say to us based on the one-on-ones and everything else that we've had all morning?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. It's really been an honor and a pleasure to appear before you again. I'd like to thank Colin and his staff for walking us through this process, as well as the city manager and the staff member here. I think everybody has been great, cordial, nice, and I'd just like to thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you again for the city attorney position.
All right, thank you so much, sir. And this time we'll start to my left at the far end. Mr. McPartland, if you have any questions for Mr. Edwards.
Sure. Mr. Edwards, how well do you accept criticism?
I accept criticism very well. When I first started working at the city of Palm Bay, that's one of the things that my boss, the city attorney, commended me on, because if he had to chew me out or ask me some questions, I mean, I didn't really take it personal, and I just kept on moving. And so he was like, I can't believe that you're that easy to get over criticism. But I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's going to be criticized by someone, and you take it for your benefit. And I try to take something positive for anything that I'm criticized about.
Thank you. Can you describe an ethical issue that you have had to deal with in your career and how you handled it?
I could barely hear you.
Can you describe an ethical issue you've had in your career and how you've handled it?
So if you look at my overall career, as an attorney in private practice, one of the issues, ethical issues that we deal with, is the fact that sometimes when your clients retain you, oftentimes they can't afford to actually make the payment. And so one of the things that happens is a family member comes in and makes the payment of the retainer. And even though they make the payment of the retainer agreement is always between the attorney and the actual client. And so that causes some issues quite often because family members and loved ones want us to break that attorney-client privilege and give them information related to the case and what's going on in the case. And that's something that we are ethically unable to do because we actually represent the client and not the individual that paid the money. Also, I talked about something that recently happened at the city dealing with our planning and zoning board. There was a developer who came before the board for a project. He was denied at planning and zoning, and then he was summarily denied at council. And one of the things he did, he asked for a rehearing. And when he came before council and came to the podium, he said that he felt that the council made the wrong decision. And if they knew that he was offering $100,000 to the city to build a fire station, that would have changed the minds of council. So we quickly had to get on board on that. And luckily, several of the council members understood that when an individual tells you that I was going to give you $100,000 for a fire station and I think you would have approved it, it's kind of like bribing them. So, you know, we had to quash that really quick and tell them, you know, you can't go back and rehear this because he said some things and things are out of the bag now. And so that could cost the city some serious problems.
All right. Thank you. And while we're all together here, do you have any questions for the board itself?
I think the one-on-ones were very good. I think one of the things that I asked, I think each one of you, is that it's been my practice that to meet with the council prior to the council meetings to make sure that we're on the same sheet of music and then to answer any questions or anything that you may have so that once the council meeting starts and we're on the dais, we can move the meeting along expeditiously because I've already known what your concerns are, your issues are, and if I needed to research them, I've had the time to research them and to provide you with the best answers possible so that we're not wasting time. I know sometimes I don't know is sometimes available, but I'll get an answer for you instead of just shooting from the hip to just give you an answer. But I like to do that, and I think I spoke to each one of you, and I think everybody was okay with those scheduled meetings. So I just wanted to make sure that if that's the case, if I am the selected candidate, that would be something that we could schedule.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Edwards. It was a pleasure talking to you, 3 times now at least.
Yes, pleasure talking to you too, Councilman Barton.
All right. Councilmember Dixon, you have any questions?
I do not.
Nope?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I'll go now, and then we'll just continue down.
Okay.
Mr. Edwards, when you were preparing, when you put in for this position to be a candidate for the city of Sebastian, what did you do to understand what Sebastian has and what we're going through and all of that? Did you do any research on the city?
Absolutely.
All right, can you expound upon all of that?
Okay, so when I first was presented with the opportunity that was opening, of course, I went through the information that was put out by Colin and his associates. I had already been made aware that Manny was leaving by Jim Stokes, and also from watching the process that went on at Melbourne. And so at that point, although I knew some things about the city, I did go in and look at the actual website. I went through and I did Google searches to find out about things. And then I think back beginning maybe December, I began watching all of your council meetings. So I watched, some of the issues that were going on and how they were decided to get a good feel of, what were the issues that you guys were facing, and to see what your demeanors were, how you got along. Because I think it's important that that the city attorney and the council have a good working relationship, and they're able to be open and honest with one another. And so everything that I saw, and then when I started talking to some of my own council members, they had nothing but good things to say about the council. So I was very relieved and pleased to hear that even though I'm attempting to leave the city of Palm Bay, that they were understanding and they gave everyone on this council a good recommendation.
All right, very good. Vice Mayor?
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Edwards.
How you doing, sir?
Thank you again for your discussion and everything. The one question I have, and I'm asking everybody the same question, which is, talk to us about your work ethic and how it applies to the job and the city and personal life and all that.
I think my work ethic is one that's very strong. Someone else asked me that question in our one-on-ones, and it went back to when I first came to the city. I would stay at work until 7, 8 o'clock at night, and it became like a running joke in the office that I was either homeless or I just came here, take a shower and come back to work because I was always there. So even when city council was going on, it was common for the city attorney to be like, I know he's there. She'd send me an email like, hey, can you bring me some aspirin down? My head's hurting. Like, yeah, okay, no problem. So I think that's my work ethic. I'm not afraid of work. I don't like to slack off. I believe in taking a collaborative approach, and I believe in people working together. I think that when you get individuals, especially employees, invested in the work that they're doing, I think they're more happy. I think that they feel a sense of pride that they're actually working on something. And then once it's successful, you give them the kudos and the accolades for all the work that they perform. And so that's the way that I've taken the approach to work. Like I told a couple of you, when you come to jobs like this, you pretty much spend your day with a core group of people. So 8 hours a day with the same group of people is more time than many of us spend with our families. Because at some point you gotta shut it down and go to sleep. So if you're gonna spend that much time with a group of people, 40 hours a week, you need to make sure that time that you spend is enjoyable, and you guys feel as much as a family as possible.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes, sir. Can you give us an indication of your experience with interlocal agreements or with working with the county in Palm Bay or one of the other cities like Melbourne and Palm Bay?
So we do a lot of interlocal agreements, especially between us and West Melbourne. We're doing, matter of fact, I was looking at an interlocal agreement that's coming in for the fire department because we're doing an interlocal agreement with the county fire department. So we're going to be sharing equipment and sharing staff. And so we had to develop that interlocal agreement to determine how people were going to be paid, who was going to pay who, where the equipment was going to come from. So we do those quite often. And then we have several neighboring agreements, especially with the city of West Melbourne, to get things accomplished that we can share in. So it works pretty good. I don't think I've had a chance to work on any local agreements with Melbourne. The majority of them are either the county or West Melbourne because they're so close to us.
Okay. Now, what do you, difficult question to answer probably, but what would you think your first 90 days would look like if we were to hire you?
I think the first 90 days for me, I saw the information that you guys put out when you were looking to do the contracts for the charter officers. And you had a breakdown of the expectations that you wanted the city attorney, and I think they were pretty much the same expectations for all three charter officers. So I think that if in the first 90 days, I would look to meet with each of the members of the council to try to develop a sense of relationship or openness with each other. I'd like to get with the city manager, and we talk sometime, so I feel pretty comfortable with him. And then the department heads and the police chief. So I would like to spend time getting to know them as well. And then I think at that point, once we have all the buy-in staff, I think it's time to get down to work and figure out what the issues are that you're facing, and keep the council moving.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your candor during the one-on-ones. It was a good conversation, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and don't forget the clerk in that statement, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Department heads.
Okay.
And the police chief.
All right, is there anything further you have for us, Mr. Edwards?
No, sir.
All right, well, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to interview.
All right, very good.
Hold on one second. Mr. Mayor, I was informed in the waiting room that Ms. Cockcroft had to go back to the hotel, and so she'll be back directly. Could we do Mr. Antasio next and wait for Mr. Cockcroft to get back?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sounds fine here.
Yeah, we're fine. You can go, sir.
Thank
We're gonna bring in John Anastasio. Put this back. Are we?
We are ahead. Oh, no. We're not even supposed to be done with Mr. Latimer yet according to the actual schedule, so we're moving along pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
So I think, since we're on the pace that we are, I know we're showing a break after two of them. I think we can finish them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We may have to take a break for Ms. Cockcraft.
Yeah, we may have to, but if she gets back by the time we finishes, with Mr. Anastasio, then, yeah, we can proceed through.
Yes.
Can you see the paper there, Mr. McPartland? Yeah. Is it Anastasio or Anastasio?
In Italy, it's Anastasio. Here in America, my parents anglicized it, and it's Anastasio.
All right, Mr.
That's the history.
Mr. Anastasio, thank you, welcome. What we're going to do now, we're going to ask you to open with any kind of statements that you would like to make to us, and we may have questions or we may not have questions for you, so you can start off.
Members of the jury, thank you for the time during this trial to listening to me. It's a little bit of a trial. I think I've laid out pretty much my philosophy, but
Pull the mic down. Pull the mic down, get a little closer. There you
it's
go.
not registering, or?
There you go.
I thought
You're
I was
good.
loud enough last night. I've laid out my basic philosophy in terms of how a city attorney should operate, how I look at the city government, and how it's the closest to the people, and therefore it's most important, and what we do matters. City attorney has to be human-centered. The technology, the law in and of itself, that you can train anybody to do. Anybody can deliver that. It's that layer above in terms of how you interact with people on the governing body, most importantly, department heads, citizens. That's where the difference is made. I can draw up a development order and say, okay, we need to add A, B, and C to it, or don't make these mistakes you may have made in the past on a development order. That anybody can do as a practical matter with a law degree, and if you devote the amount of time necessary for a particular project. But looking beyond that, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I want to deliver to you, to each and every one of you. And I will make you one promise and one promise only. My number one priority as city attorney will be each and every one of you equally. Delivering service, whether you call it user experience or customer experience, how we interact on a daily basis, on a long-term basis, and long-term is important. We often look rather short-sightedly at problems, but is our short-term solution, what impact does that have in the long term? You've probably seen it in looking back historically in this city, or looking historically the way the federal government operates, or the military, or banking, among other places. And if you don't look at the long term, now I know that's extremely difficult. We're hardwired to think of the short term. And to be real blunt, to give you an example, you may say it's obvious, but sometimes it isn't. Imagine yourself 5,000 years ago standing on the Serengeti with a shield and a spear. Are you going to concentrate on the lion across the valley, or are you going to concentrate on the snake at your feet? And so we're always fighting this tension that was hardwired from 150,000 years of human existence, depending upon which expert you talk to, of thinking short term. And I try, as a default, to think long term. It's not that difficult. And we're going to be needing to think long term, and you've started with a wonderful plan because of the annexation. But it's going to require thinking through in second, third, fourth order thinking to what we're doing at every single step of the way. Because it's real hard to rip up a development. It's real hard to move a road. And these are the things that you need to think about. In also talking about long term, I think I've talked with most of you, but we're facing right now with this annexation and with the city's expansion, we're at the end of a 17-year real estate cycle. And so between the economy as a whole, the real estate market as a whole, these are things to be factored in. Not to delay us, but these need to be factored in for contingencies. I constantly think of different scenarios. Again, as I told you all, turning the prism. You have to take a multidisciplinary approach as city attorney. I find that most attorneys in general, not just city attorneys, don't do that. Because as I'll say again and again, we're hardwired as attorneys to be reactive. It's a reactive culture. It's been for hundreds of years. And that has to change. And I'm hoping to make that change with this city in regard to legal affairs. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. And obviously, you've done some research looking into the city, so you understand some of the challenges that are facing us and has faced us. So I want to thank you for your time in doing that. Vice Mayor Nunn, you'll be up if you have any questions.
So the one question I have is, talk about your work ethic and how that relates to your job, the city, personal life, and all of that.
While there has to be work-life balance, you have to live your job. If you don't love the work you're doing, you are not going to perform at a high level. Now, I try and avoid deadlines and so forth, but sometimes they will occur, and you get up against deadlines. And I have, on occasion, worked 24, 30 hours straight if I have to meet an objective for my client. And if things are in an emergency situation, or something slips or whatever, you put in the time to do it. But a lot of what I'm going to be doing for you is working on relations in order to avoid litigation, in order to avoid protracted contract negotiations, whether with vendors or with labor. So, you've got to be all in or all out. And you don't gauge that on the sheer number of hours. But my preference would probably be to come in early. Part of the problem today is that the average, even information worker, only produces about 2.75 hours of real work. And that's because of our constant interruption, texts, emails, the phone going off. And so that coming in an hour or two early, probably a couple hours early, I can almost double my productivity if I'm not interrupted. General Eisenhower talked about, what's important versus what's urgent in terms of prioritizing work. You have to realize what's urgent and what's not. By the same token, you have to realize, again, from a customer point of view, a user point of view, that I will try at all times when I get an inquiry, whether it's staff or from any of you. If I can't answer it immediately, I'm going to tell you, give me X number of time to get back. Then I throw it in my calendar. I can plan to make sure I deliver it on time to you. But it's simply a function of planning. And that's what's really important, I think. Again, reaching out to all of you at city council meetings, both before as well as during. If you hire me as city attorney, and we're talking about ordinances, resolutions, talking about public policy, I'm not going to stand there and just hear what you have to say, okay, we'll draft you up something. I'm going to ask you questions. I believe in mission command. The mission is first, your people second, you last. And part of the critical thing there, as I think I've mentioned to most of you, is determining a commander's intent. You are my commander. I want to know what you really mean, because I don't want to have an ordinance that a year or two or several years down the line is not doing what you want or has unintended consequences. And part of that means designing ordinances intelligently in terms of controlling both citizens that may be under it as well as your bureaucracy. And that means defining things clearly, but always keeping in mind that, unfortunately for humans, language is a very blunt instrument. These are some of the things that I would pull forward in terms of how I view my work ethic. But you can work harder, you can work smarter. I like to work smarter, but you get a certain satisfaction when necessary of working like hell, if you'll excuse the language. And sometimes, if you decide that there is some problem in the middle of the night, you can pick up the phone. Unlike maybe some of the presidential advertisements, I would welcome a 3 o'clock emergency phone call from you. It means, you trust me and I'm needed. Well, I have basic human needs also. And so, don't cry wolf, but, or if you've got something that's even an ethical problem, not a city emergency, but that's nagging at you, you pick up the phone. We work it out and we discuss it. Keeping in mind, of course, unfortunately, the attorney-client privilege doesn't apply between I as city attorney and you as council members. So, there are limits for purposes of confidentiality, but I expect to be there all the time for all of you, except when I go on vacation to Cape May, New Jersey. But even then, I mean, I was planning ahead. I'm gone the 28th through July 10th. And I'm looking, okay, I'll be back in time for the July city meeting, but oh, the day I was going to go to Orlando before I fly out the next morning, I have a city council meeting. So I'm sitting, how will I juggle that? But you know, that's my work ethic. I try and plan around it. But very few things in terms of my time are sacrosanct except my return to my ancestral homeland, New Jersey.
Awesome. Thank you.
You have any more questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Dodd?
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to get in the way if somebody wants to go to Cape May, New Jersey.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right now.
And you will all get postcards, at least one. And probably pictures. You'll be annoyed. Oh, it's like...
Okay, we're basically a one-person shop, okay? Our attorney is on their own. How do you see yourself working in an environment where you don't have a paralegal, you have to do all of the work yourself? There is some limited number of secretarial support, but not a gigantic amount. So how do you feel in that, working in that environment?
Well, thank God we're somewhat digital, because copying and scanning and so forth take a little bit of time, and it's inefficient and ineffective when it comes to having a professional attorney you're paying a good dollar to doing it. But in terms of things like dictation, I started out in, about 25 years ago.
Go to the microphone, it gets...
Oh, well, is it not picking up? Sorry.
Yeah.
I used to getting from behind the podium with juries.
That's
I
at Cape May,
apologize.
New Jersey. You want to walk when you talk.
Exactly, exactly. And I can chew gum at the same time. Back about 25 years ago, Dragon Naturally Speaking 1.0. I used to dictate to my computer 25 years ago. Now it's everywhere, but I think I may want some funds for technology, AI and derivations of AI, electronic discovery. Those sort of things are not going to replace lawyers. They're going to make them more efficient. So a one-person shop. But I may want to discuss with you perhaps something there, because quite frankly, I don't need your medical benefits, and we've got $27,000 budgeted just for medical benefits for the city attorney. So I'm hoping we can, from a budget point of view, have some negotiation on maybe some part-time staff. Not necessary, I'll leverage the technology, but using, you know, those funds that are budgeted. You've got a total budget for this year of $188,000 and change for the city attorney's office, salary, taxes, benefits, outside contracting, I think, is $30,000. So there's something there that I can structure within your budget. I hope your question is not directed towards, you know, well, we wouldn't add somebody you might need, as opposed to, we need to keep you within budget. I can keep within budget and possibly add an assistant. So you have, again, turn the prism, be creative. So I analyze the city attorney's budget and trying to figure out ways to make it work one way or another.
Okay.
Leveraging technology will be number one, and then juggling the budget in terms of line items will be the second thing to accomplish your goals.
Okay, describe your first 90 days if you're retained. The first 90 days in office, what do you see as what you have to do, what you have planned to accomplish?
The two things. Number one, start to develop contacts throughout the city, simultaneously taking care of any emergent issues, and beginning, obviously not, probably take a 6-month period, to review the charter, to review all our ordinances, to review policies and procedures in every single department, a legal checkup on everything to update it. Again, as I've discussed with you all, you need to get outside of the curve, or you're just a hamster on a hamster wheel. And so I need to see what's there. And again, the technique I discussed last night of asking those two questions of, you know, for each department head and the council members, you know, what are your 3 top goals and what are the 5 tasks for each of those goals, so that I can find ways to smooth out and make sure that you achieve your goals with more smoother. So those are the things that and again, we've got, you know, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is, of course, the annexation. We've got all of that. That's a long-term project in the same way as, probably take about 6 months to a year to really review top to bottom all of the city's laws. But those are the things, but if you tell me, I'm coming in here, I've got my opinion on things, but I work for you. This is a rhetorical question. What do you want to have be my top priorities? That I'll certainly ask all of you. Maybe that's my number one priority, is to find out, beyond the relationship building, what do you want from me? We didn't really have, we touched on it with each of you a little bit, but we'll go into a deep discussion. Again, you give me the direction. I take the commander's intent and I follow with it to the best of my personal and technical ability.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Dodd. Ms. Dixon?
Sure, we had a great discussion earlier, and one question I didn't get to was if you could tell me about a challenging situation in which you had to apply your legal skills and technical knowledge.
I was drafting a contract. A client of mine was establishing a company. It was going to be a service where they brokered boats, kind of like, what you see with automobiles, and he was trying to do that along the same way. He had called in some heavy hitters, and we had had some discussions about, exactly what the framework was going to be that interacted with the tech end and the legal end. And I used some outside help when we were discussing standards in terms of the computing and security and so forth. I used the NIST standards, as a guideline, because people sort of had trust and confidence in that. And so using available technical resources in order to build trust between the owner and people that were taking a piece of the action by giving some sweat equity. That's the way I combined it. And again, you find a trusted source that people can agree on, and you integrate that into your negotiations or your workout between legal and technical. Again, technical end, the technological stuff, the legal stuff, it doesn't matter in the end. It really doesn't. What matters are people. What matters is the human element. That's what makes it work. The complaints we have about artificial intelligence, it's because, it sucks everything from the internet, good or bad, and you land up with biases. So even AI is susceptible to human weakness. And you've got to build on your strengths and find other people to help complement your weaknesses. That's the way you most effectively perform. It's a team effort. I will, on occasion, reach out to all of you and ask your opinion in terms, not simply because it's something before the council, but seek your counsel and guidance. I look for help from all possible sources. And I don't care about getting the credit. I'd rather give it to someone else. The only time I want the credit is if something goes wrong. And the buck will stop here, keeping in mind that, I look at the most effective organization being a learning organization. You push the envelope a little bit. You experiment. Not everything is going to work. I don't blame people. I look for systems analysis. Because in the end, why did something go wrong and an employee go wrong with something? Well, let's look back to the recruitment. Let's look back to the evaluation. Let's look back to the training. Something goes wrong with a development order. Again, you got to look back to the system and try and correct that. That's the only way you get long-term improvement. Making mistakes is the story of human evolution. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes as one of the judges says, I wax eloquently and you don't get it rather than a short answer, but I didn't think you wanted a yes or no.
Correct.
Most of the time you'll get a yes, a yes or a no, and then I'll say, would you like me to explain? Because otherwise I will talk your ear off. And so that's how I control myself, with an immediate answer and then ask you if you want an explanation.
So you seem to have a creative approach to problem solving and the law. What made you choose to apply to the job in Sebastian?
Well, the city is interesting. I started looking at not just what you've done with the annexation agreement and the annexation ordinance, which combining the concepts of commercial, industrial with the residential for a balance. I learned that at age 18 when I ran for city council. They call it township committee in my town. And learned very young. You know, you've got to balance. You got to bring in light, clean ratables that can help create a tax base to reduce the burden on the taxpayer residents. So, you know, that was something that was attractive. Quite frankly, I had a wonderful conversation with your city manager, which made the city even more attractive. I live on the island. This isn't much different. I've lived on the Treasure Coast since 1989. So I've been here for a while. This is my backyard, even though I don't necessarily travel up the road that often, don't get into Vero for court that often. I don't have anything current and haven't had for a couple of years, so I don't have any conflicts. I have no developers. I have no vendors that I know of, that I could even conceive of. I have no conflicts of interest that are going to get in the way of giving you full, fair, devoted representation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Dixon. Mr. McPartland?
Yes, I've enjoyed our conversations over the past 2 days. So,
Thank you for having your bar so low.
you're welcome. You know, how well do you accept criticism?
I'm sorry?
How well do you accept criticism?
What's criticism? It's all a learning process. I welcome criticism. I am not the be-all and end-all. I'm not even a fraction of it. I take advice and information from everyone. Now, if I get criticism, I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to analyze it rationally, if it makes sense. I can't think of the number of times when, I've reversed myself in the middle of arguing before a judge and said, wait a minute, Judge. Or I've walked into a hearing and go, well, Judge, we can cut this short, assuming that the defendant or the plaintiff was right, under these circumstances, then I would lose. But if they're not right, here. But I welcome it. Nobody's perfect. If you stop listening to people, you silo yourself mentally, and you become almost useless. I'm open to everything. And I love a good, has negative connotations to argument in terms of conflict, but I like a good argument in terms of bouncing back and forth, like colleagues, like two physicists would do, and bounce it back and then play out. And I use that to expand, the issue and get even deeper. But you're gonna stand up one day and say, John, what were you thinking? Duh. I have no, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm telling you, but I'm going to make good. When I make mistakes, I do my damnedest to make good on them. Excuse the language.
All right. And then can you describe an ethical issue that you've had to deal with in your career and how you handled it?
Lots of them in terms of questioning whether a client's been telling the truth. I had an interesting part of the questionnaire, like the information questionnaire you had, with the city of Fort Pierce, where they asked, what would you do if the council wanted to do something illegal? And quite frankly, you see it all the time, because I get a feed as to anything dealing with municipal attorneys throughout the state. It gives me intelligence on open jobs as well as who may get canned real soon, so I have an edge on it. And I see it constantly. I am not going to bend on those particular, you lie about something, let's talk about it, because truth can be a point of view one way or another. But clients, I fired clients when I have issues like that. What appears on the surface, perfectly good cases, I withdraw. It's as simple as that. But when you're dealing, say, with difficulties internally with the city, and you've got a problem with, say, an employee or a charter officer, I'm not going to run to you first with something I perceive as unethical. I am going to attempt to explain, counsel, and direct that charter officer or employee to do the right thing. If they can't do the right thing, then I bring it before you. But it's a two-step process. You don't escalate when you don't have to escalate. Sorry. And that's how I deal with ethics. Yeah. Ethics is a way of life. I think of ethics not in terms of simply a set of rules like the Florida Bar Ethics or the ethics of the American Medical Association or whatever. Ethics is right and wrong. It goes beyond the mandates that we have for our ethics statutes. Yeah. A conflict is a conflict. You don't put yourself first with anything. You don't try and destroy people out of spite. These are the things that, I learned when I was young. You can throw all the ethics at me you want, and in the end, a lot of it's just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo that changes. Ethics are something that's a little more permanent in my mind. And after I try and work it out with the individual in the city, only then will I seek your advice, counsel, and direction.
All right. And then while the entire board's here together, do you have any questions for us?
Does anybody think of a reason why I wouldn't want this job?
No.
Well, I'm being blunt. I ask any prospective, both private and public employer, or even when I'm there are things, I've had explained to me already, but, I look at the little bit of friction for the councilman here, with performance evaluations and so forth. It was his view and so forth. I can't say I necessarily disagree with, but it's a point of view also. I don't see any major problems from my point of view. You all appear rather likable, which is the first element you need in order to start developing that intimate professional relationship and trust. If you don't trust me, and I perceive you don't trust me, well, I'm going to give my notice because there's no point. Without blasphemy involved, although the Supreme Court refers to it, lawyer-client relationship, even though the privilege wouldn't apply between us, is like a priest and a penitent. And we need that sort of openness and relationship to talk. I think I've given you my view as to text and email. It sometimes constrains the working of an organization, any organization, particularly a governmental one, where then things you can have the light shown on things and twisted if things are put in writing, where if you had a discussion and worked it out, it's less likely to be twisted. It's not to evade the Sunshine Law, but it's because when you're dealing in governmental operations, unlike private operations, a lot of this stuff becomes political. And we're trying to work to the maximum while following the law. So, that's certainly a consideration ethically and communication-wise is, we want to keep it collegiate. And again, the whole point is not to hide under a basket, not to put the lantern under the bushel basket, but to bring the maximum force and effect and effectiveness for the people of the city of Sebastian.
All right, thank you. I just got one other question. So this is basically like a follow-up to what Mr. McPartland asked earlier. Tell us how you would handle a situation where we as a council wants to pursue a course of action that in your professional experience tells you it is not prudent for us to go down that road.
My first impulse would probably be summary execution. The second course of action, well, my preferred, not my knee-jerk, is to sit down. If I am doing my job as I see doing my job, and I've developed this amount of trust, then it's to persuade you to do otherwise. But as I plan, if I'm contacting you before the meetings and going over things, if I am giving you a really good city attorney report and not a perfunctory report, then these things, it's not inconceivable, but it's highly unlikely that it would occur because we're working as a team. And as I start to understand what's going on, again, keeping in mind the dynamics, as I say again and again, a city attorney has to be political but not partisan. But do you have anything illegal you're contemplating I could advise you on now? Because I just can't conceive of it if we're working along. You also have to understand that, life is too important to take seriously.
Right.
And as I like to quote General John Blackjack Pershing, the commander of the American forces in World War I, he had a sign on his desk that say, "Take your job seriously, never yourself." So I don't mean to be light about it, but if we start to work together and not as the normal bureaucratic government lawyer, then the chances of that occurring are going to be slim to none. And you'll confide in me ahead of time as we go through it. And when I start asking the questions, I believe in teaching by questions, and I believe in the beautiful question that brings out the truth. And if you were to go along that course and I start asking questions for direction, it may also be a subtle, polite communication to you of the problems involved. You can do things the hard way, or you can do things the easy way with people. I prefer the easy, kinder way. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be hard-nosed, all business, but as I think I may have mentioned to one or two of you, I would quote Al Capone. It's better to rob a bank with a smile and a gun than with a gun alone. And that's the way we would do it here if I was city attorney, with that smile, working it out. But again, you may be thinking of something that may turn out to be illegal, and I would submit to you that I don't think you're capable of that intentionally. And my job is to cause you to think about it and come to your own conclusions. The same way as I lay the facts out for the jury and I don't direct them. I very rarely tell them, do this, do that, unless I'm picking a number for damages. And people would much rather come to their own conclusions. I want you to come to your own conclusions with anything we're working on today. I don't want to tell you what to do. That's not my job. My job is to give you guidance. My job is to diagnose the problem. My job is to present it in a way that you have reasonable options to select from. But again, it's the relationship. I keep on coming back to it. It doesn't sound like your normal government lawyer, but this is a different way of practicing law. Quite frankly, yeah, I've got the skills everybody else has, but if you're looking because somebody needs city attorney or deputy city attorney or assistant city attorney in their resume, and that's what's important to you, then you don't want to pick me. If you want to pick a different way of your city attorney practicing law and dealing with you, then it's either those four folks that do that or me with what I've been talking about. That's your choice. Everything else is splitting hairs on qualifications for the other candidates. Questions?
No, all right.
Comments, threats?
No, thank you so much, sir. You can step out. I think, do we have our other candidate here? If not, we'll take a recess.
I'm going to go and check.
Okay.
I was asked one question earlier. Do they need to remain here for the 5 o'clock meeting?
No, I don't think so. If they don't have to, they don't have to remain here.
I know some have to travel. They're not going to be giving any more input that I know of.
Yeah, no, we can make our decision from what we've already have. I think I'm okay with that. Bob, are you okay with that as well?
Yeah, they can go.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, we don't need you here at 5 o'clock.
Your Honor, keep in mind it's Cinco de Mayo. We have places to go. No, but I'll hang around. I'll hang around so I can watch you rip me apart. No problem.
Go have some tequila and a taco.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Go have some tequila and a taco.
So he likes to quote movies, as to quote my cousin Vinny. I'm done with this guy.
I'll let you go and talk about my paranoia behind my back.
Thank you.
Take care now.
All right, take care, sir. Thank you so much.
Hold 1 second, please. Don't call it yet. So I have a question I forgot to ask Mr. Edwards. And I guess, I don't know if we can discuss my question, because maybe somebody else had this discussion with him. Can we discuss that?
No, we're live. We can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question was, did anybody have a discussion with him about running for judge in 2024?
No.
His Facebook account makes it very clear that he intends to run again, and that would definitely be an influencer of a decision if we were gonna lose our attorney possibly next year, so.
Yeah.
The impression I have is that in his current position in Palm Bay, he would run for judge.
Okay.
Now, whether he would run for judge in this position or not, I think that might be up in the air.
Okay.
Because he's not running for judge in this circuit.
He is not. He is
Right.
not, correct. Okay, so if anybody else is uncomfortable with that question not being asked, we can call him back to ask that question, or are we comfortable with what Mr. Dodd just said?
No, I'm okay. I don't care if we call him back. I don't mind if we call him back. If you wanna ask him.
We could do either way, but I recall he kinda answered that question the last time when he interviewed with Mr. Mai, that if he got this position, he was not. That's what I,
Okay, and I kind of remember that too, but when I was looking at his Facebook page the other day, it was an older comment, so it wasn't a newer comment, but.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We can go ahead and,
All right, we'll see what.
see what happens here.
She's not here? All right, so,
Is she,
is she planning on coming back?
So the information I received, it's probably gonna be about 3 or 3:15 before she gets back. She,
Yeah, we're ahead of schedule, well ahead of schedule, so it's not
mean-
I think, based on the time schedule that we have, that's not a real issue.
They didn't
We
lock her
can-
back in her room, did they?
I don't have
So-
an answer to that, but I'm hoping that couldn't happen.
so let's go from a different discussion. Obviously, we all had one-on-one interviews with her, and as well as we did with Mr. Ventura. So there's not a requirement for her to come stand in front of us today during this part or in the final session. The question is, do we need that? Do we have to do that? Or can we move forward to the next phase of this without having her come before, this session?
You'd have to
I
wait
think it
till
would be,
5.
I think it would be prudent to do that, though,
Correct.
to have her come, since we had the other candidates, and she is here.
Okay.
That we actually do that. So what she said, 3:15?
She said what I heard from Ms. Watson is between 3 and 3:15.
Okay.
But
3 and 3:50?
3 and 3:15. I
15.
don't have it, we don't know that that's accurate, because that's what she said.
Okay,
when
so
she-
what we'll do is just recess till 3:20 and come back.
Yeah, that's actually the time she was scheduled.
Yeah, okay,
Oh, okay.
If I
Yeah.
may-
That
if I
is
may
true,
make a
that is the
suggestion.
time
yeah.
that she was scheduled, so.
So
if
we can
to
recess
3:20.
till 3:20,
Can I
and,
make a suggestion?
yes.
sir.
Recess until 4:30 so that you get done with her and go right into your 5 o'clock and not have to reset and.
Oh,
come
that's
back
a
at
great
5.
idea. Thank you for thinking about that, Mr. Carlisle. You're thinking about us. That's awesome.
I'm only making a suggestion. It's council.
No,
I think I need more time to think.
Huh?
I'd just as soon come back at 3:20, and then we'll have 45, 50 minutes or so before 5 o'clock, where we can sit down and kind of summarize ourselves again. I don't know if everybody else is at a point where they
Yeah,
might want
'cause
to think about it or not.
It's not like we're going anywhere either way, so that's fine. 3:20 is fine.
3:20, we're gonna recess till 3:20. All right, we're back in session. Our next candidate is Ms. Jennifer Cockcroft. Please come forward. All right, ma'am, if you want to, you can start off with a statement or something that you want to say. We've had meetings all morning, so we'll let you start off, and then we may or may not have questions from each one of us, all right?
Can you guys hear that?
No, not too much.
He's, is that one, did it stop working? There it goes. Oh, you're good now.
Now it's time. You want to start over?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
all right. All right, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Cockcroft. Much better. I'm a municipal lawyer. I have been a municipal lawyer since 2004. I've been a member of the bar in Georgia since 1998 and in Florida since 2004. As of 2018, I am a board-certified lawyer in local city, county government law. And that's a certification issued by the Florida Bar. Very few lawyers in the state of Florida, I believe it's under 1%, are board certified in local government. My experience has been primarily in-house as a city attorney in various capacities, including assistant city attorney, deputy city attorney, and city attorney as well. I have a broad variety of experience in municipal law, and I look forward to any potential questions you have with respect to my qualifications, and I'm available for any questions of, anything you'd like to ask of me. Thank you for having me here today. Look forward to it.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to start with Ms. Dixon on this. Do you have anything for her?
Not immediately, so. if
Okay,
something
no,
pops up,
that, no, that's fine. Mr. Dodd, you want to go next?
Yeah, I can. Why don't you, turn the mic on, it helps. Why don't you just kind of describe what you think your first 90 days will entail if you're employed?
If it's selected to be your next city attorney, in my first 90 days, I would like to establish a good relationship with all of the council members and get to know your staff as well. Figure out what your established priorities are for the city, your long-term goals and your short-term goals. Figure out, what stage they're at what stage the city attorney has been involved, and whether there's anything pending. That would be my primary goals in the first 90 days.
Okay. What about your
And
experience
city
with...
manager, if I left him out, sorry.
I'm sorry?
If I might have left out the city manager, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All the charter officers.
Okay. What's your experience with interlocal agreements, working with county governments, other city governments?
I've worked on many interlocal agreements with Osceola County when I was with the city of Kissimmee. I did interlocal agreements with Seminole County when I was with the city of Sanford and the city of Oviedo, and I did them with Brevard County when I was with city of Palm Bay. So yes, I do have extensive experience in interlocal agreements of a variety of types.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Most
All right.
recent ones were involving roads, for example.
I'm sorry?
Most recent ones I can think of involved roads.
Yes, okay, good. We need some road interlocal, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Nunn?
Yeah. Hi, thank you again for our conversation. I really
you.
appreciate it. My one question is related, can you describe what your work ethic is related to the city, how it would be to the city, your personal life, the job and altogether?
Well, I would obviously be devoted to meeting the needs of the city if employed, and making sure that all of my, everything you need of me is taken care of. I mean, that would be the number one priority as city attorney. Personal life is, after hours generally. If you have an emergency, obviously, that's be the exception, but my priority would be to take care of the needs of the city.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Ma'am, could you tell us how you would handle a situation where we as a council wants to pursue a course of action that your professional experience tells you is not proven?
Well, I would like to meet with you all individually and try to explain to you the pitfalls of that and why it's not a prudent course of action, whether it be legal or practical or a combination, and so that we could come to a potentially better course of action. And all I can do is give you the advice, whether you choose to take it or not. But that would be how I would approach such an issue.
All right, so how did you prepare, not for just today's, but the last couple of days coming here to interview for this job position? How did you prepare for that?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of my time in this past couple of days has been on an airplane, so I've been researching the city to the extent I've been able to, and researching some of the issues here locally. I'm looking at your website, reading your backgrounds, and how you came to be involved as council members, and what your interests are in the city and your goals for the city, and as well I've looked at some of the local newspapers.
All right. So having said that, have you had the opportunity to look at our charter or look at some of the major things that has come before us recently?
I'm sorry, I have not. I applied late in the process, so I had not had a chance to review your charter yet. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. You don't need to be sorry, but it's just questions. Thank you so much. Ms. Dixon?
I'm sure that'd be one of the first things as well that I would be doing.
All right.
What makes you believe you would be a good fit for the city of Sebastian?
I believe my experience, first of all, would be make me a great candidate, fit-wise. I believe my personality from meeting with you all. I enjoyed meeting with you all and speaking with you all. And I believe my personality type is such that it would bring something to the table and mesh well with those of you already here. I did watch some of your meetings as well. I neglected to mention that. I have watched several of your meetings over the past couple of months and how you handle issues as they come before you. And I appreciate the way that you handle citizens and things of that nature. And the meetings seem to be pretty even-tempered from my watching those.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. McPartland?
Yes, I enjoyed our time together, Jennifer, last night, and was it this morning or this afternoon? I can't remember now. Okay. How well do you accept criticism?
I accept criticism. I don't love criticism, and nobody does love to be wrong, right? But no one's perfect. So if I'm doing something wrong, I need to know about it. So, but I try to produce the best product that I can so that it doesn't produce a lot of criticism. But if we've got problems, let's discuss them. Better to discuss them than to talk about them behind your back, right?
All right. And then can you describe an ethical issue that you have had to deal with in your career and how you handled it?
Without disclosing something that could subject someone to potential ethical violations at another jurisdiction, could I respectfully decline that question and ask her a different one?
Okay. All right. As the board is all together here all at once, do you have
Yes.
any questions for the board?
I'm sorry for that. I apologize
okay.
if that's okay. But if you'd like to pose another question,
No.
Okay. Questions for the board, I guess, do you feel, do you have any concerns from meeting me today? And also, when are you looking for your next city attorney to take over for the interim?
Yeah. One of the other questions that go along with that, if I can expound upon that, Mr. McPartland. If we were to select you as a city attorney, how soon would you be ready to start?
The only obligations, I am under a 30-day notice period with my current contract with my current law firm, but I have been, they are aware that I have been looking for other opportunities, and I've been told that I can probably get out of it within a 10-day notice. However, I do have a pending project with a client, in a jurisdiction in Osceola County, and I've committed to him that I will see his project to the end, which will likely be end of May.
Okay. Does anyone else have any, did you have any more questions, Mr. McPartland?
No.
Does anybody else? No, all right. It was great meeting with you on the one-on-ones and last night as well and here today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And you can, you're excused for now.
Okay, all right. Thank you all very much. It was
Thank
very
you.
nice to meet you all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
All right, next thing, we're gonna go, I know, Mr. Dodd, you had mentioned something you wanna start this discussion that you were talking about? Turn on your mic, so
Sorry. I'm not sure, I mean, are we gonna try to talk about the clients and then wait till 5 o'clock? Because we can't really, we're in a workshop right now, we can't really make any decisions in the workshop. So I guess my preference would be to for us to go ahead and recess or terminate the workshop, 5 o'clock, bring the council meeting back together, and then by that time, if any of us have any real issues or whatever with an individual, we can vote. I don't really have, I'm not sure that I want to discuss in public with you guys with these individuals yet, because we really can't make much of a decision in a workshop, so.
right.
But if anyone would like to do that, I have no objections to doing it, I'm just not prepared to do that yet.
I think what Mr. Dodd said earlier about us breaking or recessing until 5 and giving us an opportunity to go through our head and our notes and think about where our options are.
Right.
And then moving forward towards the 5 o'clock discussion and choice and moving forward.
Right, okay. So what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna adjourn this workshop, and then we'll convene the city council special meeting on this at 5 p.m.